Hello everybody, welcome to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. I'm Max Hayes, and alongside me, most weeks, fingers crossed, will be Sarah Clapson and hopefully some guests. I'm delighted to be with you. This is all a bit new. If you have just joined us and you haven't seen the news recently, Matt has left the company, which means me and Sarah have been tasked with taking over the podcast and continuing the great work. And we will all talk about one thing that we all love, which is Nottingham Forest, of course. Every week we'll have guests, former players, former pros, anyone that's associated with Nottingham Forest, and we will talk all things about the club that we love. And after Forest lost to Everton 1-0, thanks to a wonder strike from Dwight McNeil, we today will reflect on that game and look ahead to the Fulham game as well. So, Sarah, how are you? How's life?
Okay, I think just about recovered from Saturday.
It was cold, wasn't it?
Oh, I think I've just got the feeling back in my fingers and toes. It was absolutely bitterly cold. And I would say the football warmed us up, but it really didn't.
Gemmo, you were there as well, former Forest player, striker, scored that winning goal in the 1990 League Cup final, the all-important goal. How are you? You must have been pretty disappointed after watching that.
It's a tough one, really, because we obviously look at the fixtures and what's coming up, and we get a little bit excited because they're winnable games. But we've also got to be realistic that the Premier League's the hardest league in the world. So these upsets, can happen. And unfortunately for Nottingham Forest, Saturday it wasn't the best performance and obviously wasn't the result we wanted.
No, definitely not. Also joining us is Tom White, Sky Sports presenter, mainly found on the Good Morning Transfers show. Tom, how are you? You're offering the neutral view today. Hopefully you can shed some positivity for us.
The game against Everton, first of all, was one that I was watching it thinking, well, someone's going to win this, all right? I don't think it's going to be a draw. It's going to take a mistake or a moment of quality from one of the sides. And that ended up being Dwight McNeil that did that for Everton. But I didn't think as a neutral that Nottingham Forest played badly at all. You could have easily nicked that and got the 3 points. It's just sadly for you, you didn't.
Yeah, we didn't. Sarah, it never really felt like it was going to be our day when Forza Garibaldi did a brilliant display and they messed up Muller King Tyre and we lost the toss as well for kickoff. And Sean Dyche, being Sean Dyche, knowing Forest very well, we ended up kicking towards the Trent in the first half, which it just didn't seem to be our day from the off, really, did it? No,
it all kind of set the tone a bit, didn't it? With no Muller King Tyre, I must admit it caught me out as well. I wasn't kind of ready, and I think that probably applied to the rest of the crowd as well. It really just set the tone for what was a pretty miserable afternoon. I thought it was good to hear the neutral view that actually Forest didn't play as badly as perhaps we thought they did. I thought it was just a really poor performance in general. Didn't really get going, didn't offer a great deal. It was a real off day if you're trying to look at positives. I don't think there was too many. Murillo was one, but other than that, I think he was the one who could walk off with his head held high. But other than that, there wasn't really a lot to get excited about. And I think that the atmosphere in general was pretty flat, and that was reflective of the performance. There wasn't a lot for anybody to get behind or to cheer about.
Gemmo, you mentioned in the introduction about the Premier League getting tougher every year and the quality getting better and better, but it's 1 win in 10 for Forest. It's ultimately concerning. Where do you think the players and Cooper go from here? Because it is quite hard to pick out any positives at the moment, do you think?
Well, the positive is for me is this time last year, I think we were rooted at the bottom of the division. There's a big debate about Steve Cooper, and I'm a massive fan of his. And he's the right man for me. The question that everyone will ask is, has there been progression from last season to this season? In my opinion, yes, there has. We've got a better squad. We're sitting in a better position than we were last year. Our goal difference, I think, is -5, whereas last year it could have been about 17, 18, 19. So there is a lot of positives there. Okay, you look at the 1 in 10, and that isn't great reading. But, I firmly believe that we're only 1 win away from, putting a good run together. The disappointing thing for me was on Saturday properly was we'd never really looked like we were going to score, I don't think. Going forward, I think that the 3 at the top didn't play to the full potential, and that was a concern for me, where the goals were going to come from. If you're not going to get one from Chris Wood, Morgan White is a terrific player. For me, could do with scoring more goals. That was the negative for me, is that the goals are very dry at the moment.
Where do you think the expectations are and should be for Forest this season? This is a club that's only in their second season in the Premier League. We obviously survived last year, not by the skin of our teeth, but with a few games to go. Of course, we secured survival against Arsenal, and Cooper did a brilliant job, not only to turn us around from the bottom of the Championship and get us promoted, but also to sustain our Premier League place. What do you think is a realistic aim for Forest this season? Do you think expectations should be higher given kind of the money the owners invested?
Yes, but last season when you go up, when you first go up to the Premier League, all you want to do is survive. Even if it's on the final day, in the final second, all you want to do is survive. You survived, with a little bit to spare, as you said. So the next season, you want to not just survive, you want to never really be in a relegation battle. All right, you're not expecting to go top half. You're not expecting to go Europe. You're just not expecting to be in a relegation battle. And I'm looking at the table now. You're 15th. 13 points from 14 games. Well, a point a game keeps you up normally quite comfortably. 38 points is enough. Now, if you want a point a game, you're only 1 point below that at the moment. So when Nigel said there, you're one win away, you get that win in the next game, which I believe is Fulham away. Your form away from home isn't that good. They are winnable games. And if you beat Fulham, you're ahead of that 1 point per game, and suddenly you're actually looking quite comfortable again. So I think at the moment, although expectations are higher than last season, I think you're all right.
That's a key point, isn't it? It's managing expectations. Why do suddenly people believe that, this is the second year in the Premier League, which is, they say, is the hardest because it's a second year syndrome. Why do we think that we finished where we did last year, that we should automatically be in the top 10? There's a phrase, let's walk before you run. And at the moment, everyone expects us to sprint. We're not going to be this top 8 club. I looked at the Brighton game, and you see where Brighton are and how they play. That should be the where we should be in maybe 3, 4, 5 years' time. There's progression there. There's everything's positive for me. And I think if that's at the beginning of the season, if we can finish around the 12th, that's progression. And that's all, the owners been terrific with what all the money's put in. But that doesn't mean, and it's happened to many clubs, that doesn't mean you're going to be in the top 8 of the Premier League. He's backed us, and I'm sure he wants to see either better performances or a better result base. But if we finish in 12th, I'll be delighted because there's progression on and off the pitch. So it's about, like I said, managing expectations, and I think there's a lot of expectations coming from people aren't connected to this football club.
I completely agree with you, actually. I think some people forget that you've got the European places and you've got trying to battle relegation. There's a lot of places in between, and finishing in those places in between for Nottingham Forest and, well, probably half of the league would be delighted to finish in those positions in between Europe and the relegation battle. You don't just survive relegation and say, right, next season, Europe. So managing expectations, you're absolutely right. And there's something when you asked me about positives earlier, I know you're asking me specifically about the game against Everton, but Nottingham Forest do have excellent fans. I love Nottingham Forest fans. Everyone knows I'm a Sunderland fan. And so obviously I think our fans are the best in the world. I love Forest fans. I love Everton fans. I see a lot of similarities with the fans of Everton, Nottingham Forest and Sunderland. And your fans, even if there is some sort of question marks over Steve Cooper, which I'd be surprised to hear, by the way, I know that your fans would back him and all the players as well. And that could be worth a few points this season.
I suppose if we're playing devil's advocate here, and I am mainly, is that I think for the first time in a while there was boos around the City ground at full time. I mean, there was a few after the Luton game when we kind of threw it away and obviously ended up 2-2. Do you think it's justified?
You're right. Boos have been a real rarity at the City ground. I can count on one hand the amount of times that we've heard them while Steve Cooper's been in charge. I think it was frustration at the performance, frustration at the result, frustration at the fact that it's 3 defeats on the bounce, that recent form hasn't been great. But it wasn't too long ago. We were talking about a positive or encouraging start to the season, and we were looking at good performances away from home at Old Trafford, at Arsenal, the win at Chelsea. It just gets lost then when that form dips. The expectation is really difficult to put your finger on because there is a real mix. I think you get fans that have managed expectations and perhaps recognise that this season is going to be tough, that you can't just go from battling relegation to fighting for a top 10 place. We know the owner is incredibly ambitious, and that's where he wants to get to. It is going to take time, slow, steady steps. There are going to be ups and downs. It's going to be one of those seasons. Progression isn't linear. It's not going to be a constant upward trend. As long as it's upward over the course of the season, I think that's good. But in between that, you're going to get ups and downs and backward steps, forward steps. I think Steve Cooper's been really clear already this season that he thinks it, or he's expecting it to be difficult. He knows it's going to be tough. He knows that it's not going to be easy because it's the Premier League. It's not. I think anybody that expects it to be a walk in the park is really mistaken, because we've seen already that the Premier League is ruthless. It's so tough. If you're not on it, if the whole team isn't on it, you can get punished. If you make one error, you get punished. Forest are in a dip of form. They're in a rut at the minute. They need to turn it around. But one result, one win, and suddenly the mood lifts, everything improves, it looks a lot more positive. My hope is that the Fulham game is similar to the one at Southampton last year, where it's a big result's coming and it really helps lift things and can quickly get back on track, because it can turn quickly, and that's what the players and the manager have just got to keep working on.
That's the problem for me, though, isn't it? Those performances against Chelsea where we won, Manchester United where we 2-0 after 5 minutes, Arsenal, that's increased the pressure that we should be higher than what we should be. Pigs and troughs you're talking about, it's a consistency. If we can start being more consistent with our performance and obviously the results, then we'll be in a better position than probably we are now. And that's obviously, like I said, making sure that we're going from one step at a time. We're in a position where anyone can beat anyone in this Premier League. You know, you look at Liverpool against Fulham on Sunday. Who'd have thought that they'd have gone there and played as well as what they did? Just because we're Nottingham Forest and we're down where we're doing. You know, you look at the 5 games we've got here now. You've had Everton, you've got Fulham, you've got Wolves away, you've got Tottenham at home, and then you've got Bournemouth at home. What's to say that we can't beat Tottenham at home? Because the way they play, we've got every chance, especially on the counter-attack that we normally do. You know, Bournemouth, I said before the Everton game, if we get 9 points out of those 5 games, it's a different picture we're looking at, and it's a lot rosier. And I still say now that we're capable of getting those 9 points. But people might say I'm being stupid saying that, but I'm confident in that team, that squad, the manager, that we can do that. And then you look at it now, you know, we're only 1 win off probably the top 11th place anyway. Okay, 1 in 10 doesn't look good, but for me, there's a lot more panicking than there should be. And I think that there's a percentage of the fans at the City Ground who are booing and do what they aren't real Nottingham Forest fans. And that's the problem for me.
Okay, let's hear what the fans think then. We put a call out on social media. Keep up to date with us on Twitter, Garibaldi Red _. We got your voice notes and videos in to see what the fans think. And here's what a few of them had to say.
I just want to say to the fans out there that are really doubting Cooper right now, maybe they're leaning towards Cooper out. We really need to think a bit further down the line how we feel if Cooper left at this point. How are we going to feel in a month or two, or at the end of the season, or maybe in a year or two, looking back on everything that the man has done for the club? Would we really feel that we'd given him the best chance that he should have had? Where he's taken us from bottom of the Championship 2 years ago, and the run we went on to get promoted, and then last season, all the ups and downs, all the new players that he's had to absorb into the squad, and then to keep us up on that day at the City Ground, bathed in the sunshine, beating Arsenal 1-0, and how that felt in that moment. I just feel like he's got so much in the bank with us. I do think he deserves a bit more time.
I feel that the pressure that Cooper's under this season is unfortunately a different type of pressure for a few different reasons. The first is I don't think he can find a position for Gibbs White in the team. You know, he's the main creative cog that we've got. Dominguez seemed to have a bit of that about him as well, but something's clearly happened there in terms of tactically or just personnel-wise. He just doesn't fancy him as much. I think that when he did make the substitutions in the second half to bring Gibbs White more centrally, it was the right thing to do. But unfortunately, you know, we're a team that's just clearly tinkering a little bit at the moment, and I think was very obvious that the players didn't have that understanding across the pitch. The other reason is because behind the scenes with recruitment, I'm just not sure. Divock Origi is a fascinating guy to watch when you're behind the dugout. Just doesn't seem to have that hunger. I've seen a few times when Cooper's called for him to come on, and I mean against Brighton he just ran down the tunnel and the coaching staff didn't have a clue where he was. And the other reason is for the fact that there seems to have been this possible falling out with Worrell behind the scenes, who's, you know, their relationship has been important during Cooper's tenure, and I just hope that over the next few games things can improve on the pitch and also behind the scenes, that things do settle down.
It's always going to be the overly ambition of the owner. That's always going to cost us. He's brought in another shipload of players. You know, since we've gone up into the Premier League, we've had more than 40 players that have come in. I mean, there's still players that are still trying to find time to find their feet. We are 15th in the Premier League, not 15th in the Championship. We want progress, and believe me, I think where we are is progress. If we get a result in the next 2 games, which I think there will be, you know, at least 4 points out of them, I think this run will be forgotten about.
Stevie Cooper, for me, is still the man for the job. Team have let him down on a couple of occasions like lately. Mistakes that have come about. We think about the West Ham goal, Dominguez. That's an unfortunate error. It's really disappointing to hear all the boos at the end of the game. We're chanting Stevie Cooper, you know, hates Leicester, hates the derby, and then there's a boos at the end. Yeah, we lost. You know, are we getting a relegation fight? Well, probably we were, and we should have expected to be there in the first place.
Divock Origi and Woods aren't goal scorers, and you have to play to Woods' strengths if he's going to be in the team. And we don't get the ball out wide and put crosses in, so there's no point playing Woods at all. There are 7 games in total in December for Forest, and if you think about the lack of striking options, where are the goals going to come from? And I'm not sure Cooper can potentially last that long if the goals aren't coming. And if you think Forest can sign a decent striker, which they have to do in January, are they going to get that done at the start of the window? You'd like to hope so, but I just think the club have been pretty negligent in leaving Cooper in this position. I don't think it's down to him. It's just the lack of a finisher and irony, pinning all the hopes on him to score you goals. So I think Cooper, and I hope it doesn't happen, could unfortunately become victim of the club's failure to get a proper striker in the summer when that should have been a priority as well.
Just nothing went right. Stray passes everywhere, not winning the ball back effectively in certain areas, and some of the changes that were made, like Aurier coming in for Aina, didn't really work. Nothing really changed. It was just disappointing all round, and yeah, the manager's going to be under a lot more pressure now, and he's going to need something against Fulham, and then we'll have to see how it goes from there. But yeah, it was a really deflating day. Everything kind of went wrong from the start to the finish, and obviously there's the penalty shout, but we wouldn't have really deserved anything out of the game anyway. That's a separate conversation about how poor the officials are in this league. But that would have just papered over the cracks if we'd have scored anyway, because these performances have been coming now quite frequently, and that was just probably the worst of the bunch. So on to Fulham, see what happens next. But yeah, really deflating day.
So of course we're struggling at the moment. We're bedding in 13 new players, trying to play a brand new system. You know, the last thing we need at the moment is a new manager. It's just not going to help. The thing that got us out of trouble last year was our togetherness. It's what made us stronger than all the other teams who were struggling. And it was just recently that Steve Cooper said, you know, when people make errors at this club, we don't kill them, we get behind them. That was a sentiment I think we all endorsed. And as far as I'm concerned, nothing has changed. So let's get behind Steve Cooper. He's never let us down before, and I know he won't this time.
Do you agree? Do you think this pressure that's kind of been put on him and from some of the Forest fans is justified or not?
Yeah, I didn't actually know that he was under pressure from any of the fans, and I'm surprised I'm surprised that he is, although I understand that I don't watch Nottingham Forest as closely as all of you and other Nottingham Forest fans do. I think he's been brilliant ever since he got the Nottingham Forest job. I think I don't think you're going to get relegated with him in charge. I think you'd be risking your Premier League status more by changing the manager rather than keeping the manager. I do think that he's got too many players. I don't know how much of that is down to him. Now I'm looking at the squad here and I've counted 29 players. I mean, that's too many. You can't keep 29 players happy. Now some of them might be injured. I don't know, but that's a big squad. And January is only 3 or 4 weeks away. If he can streamline the squad and actually get a few players out, even if it's on loan, I'm not even sure if he needs to sign anybody. And that might get a little bit more, might make it easier for him to pick his team. But as for pressure on Steve Cooper, I'm quite surprised to hear it personally.
Sarah, do you think you speak to Cooper most games, post and pre? Did he look like a man that was under pressure? Because at the end of the day, it is a results-driven business. And if you're Marinakis sat investing money into the club, you can probably justify why the man might be under pressure in terms of if you were in Marinakis' position.
Yeah, I mean, the owner's spent a lot of money, hasn't he? He's put the cash in, brought a lot of players, wants more for his investment, wants to show that they've brought the right players and helping Forest progress. But pressure comes with the job. Steve Cooper's been here before. He's been under pressure a couple of times last season when his job was under scrutiny. He rarely changes in terms of his demeanour, regardless of win, loss, pressure. I mean, there's always pressure. That's kind of comes with the territory, but he's always pretty much the same. So you can never really read too much into his demeanour in press conferences, but he'll know that results need to improve. He'll know that the owner wants more, that he heard the boos at full time on Saturday. I still think he can turn things around. I still think he's the right man for the job, not because he's got credit in the bank, but because he's shown he can do it before. He has got credit in the bank, of course, but he has turned around tricky situations before. He has shown that he can learn from mistakes. He has shown that he takes things on board. He's shown that he can improve players. He's shown that he can knit together a squad. He's having to do it all again and without his main striker. I think it can't be underestimated how big of a loss Taiwo Awoniyi is. It's huge. It's no excuse. Forest have to find a way to win without him, but it is having an impact, and it's making an already difficult situation even trickier, trying to get through a poor run of form, trying to blend players together. Players are still finding their feet. The squad is still coming together. It is difficult. Changing a manager is always a gamble. And I think people look and think, oh, well, somebody can come in and automatically improve this squad and automatically improve these players and automatically turn the form around. And it doesn't always work like that. If you look at the bigger picture, Steve Cooper is such a good manager, such a terrific man manager. Over time, I think there's no question that he will progress Forest as a club and get the team and the squad playing the way that he wants. He's trying to change around the playing style as well as pick up results, which isn't easy. He's trying to do lots of different things at once. And it's, I don't envy him for sure, but I still think that he can turn it around because he's shown he can do it before.
Gemmo, Sarah mentioned there the player pressure sometimes and perhaps the way that Forest are changing the way that we're playing football. Cooper last season would set us up, and he had to set us up very defensively. We were a team that didn't have much of the ball, and we were kind of playing counter-attacking football. We're still trying to do that now. Do you think that he's setting us up in the right way still, or do you think at home against a team like Everton, we should have gone and kind of chased the game to them almost and really gone for it because we're the home team and we were almost favourites for that game?
So if that's the case, then what players would you put in the starting lineup that Steve Cooper didn't? So what other options has he got?
The loss of Taiwo is huge, and the replacement of Chris Wood. What have you made of Chris Wood recently, Gemmo? Because a lot of Forest fans have criticised him. They've said he struggles to hold up the ball. He's just that pace off. He will be the main striker until Taiwo is back because Origi doesn't look fit at all. Does that mean that we have to maybe change the way we play football to suit Chris Wood, perhaps?
Well, we play with two wingers, so obviously Chris Wood thrives on balls coming in the box. I think we do that anyway. Chris will be disappointed himself, I think, with some of the ways that the team or himself is playing. I thought Chris Wood would be a fantastic signing when he came here because he got experience of playing at Burnley and obviously Newcastle. Whether that's not down to me, not whether he thinks at the moment it's a success or not. That's not for me to say, but it is a worry for me that obviously with Taiwo now being injured, where the goal's going to come from, and we may have to change formation. I said to Jason Lee actually in the stand when why don't we go to a 4-4-2? But I don't think these players now know what 4-4-2 formation is because no one seems to play it anymore. I'd have probably put Origi up front with Chris Wood, played Hudson-Odoi on one side, Lang on the other side, or something like that, and just go for it. But it's easy, isn't it, on the touchline and what it is down there. And I'm not going to criticise Steve Cooper for what he does. He's the manager of this football club, and there'll be no one hurting more than what he is at this moment in time with the results and stuff like that. So I think we were talked about, I think Tom mentioned about January, and we have got a big squad, and I'm sure there'll be people going and coming into the football club in January. We've got the African Nations Cup, don't forget, so I don't know how many we're going to lose for that. I expect there'll be some signings, definitely, but I also see some departures coming in as well. So, it's a tough period, but listen, we can't blame injuries because other clubs have got lots of injuries as well, and you just have to roll your sleeves up and get on with it. But it's with the lone strikers sometimes it's not an easy shift, but you do have to get hold of that ball, which enables then the back four or the back five, whatever you want to say, to push up a bit. And we're making the pitch too big at the moment.
I've just got the team up from Saturday. Actually, it is actually a good team, isn't it? Vlachodimos looks all right. He's been all right since he's come in, hasn't he? Serge Aurier is a good right back. Willie Bowley's a good centre back. I like that Sangare, Mangala, and Yates in the three in midfield. They're good players. I love Morgan Gibbs-White, although I do think he's better centrally. They could have taken one of those midfielders out and put Gibbs-White as a 10, I suppose. And I think Anthony Lang is a good player. And you've talked about Wood there. And actually, I think you've got a strong bench as well. I mean, Hudson-Odoi on the bench. I mean, you didn't think you'd be saying that at Forest a couple of years ago, did you? And Origi there, I didn't realise that Origi wasn't fit because I've always thought that he's a good player too. I think it's a good side.
I mean, Tom, when you watched the Forest Everton game, you surprised at how long Chris Wood actually stayed on the pitch? Because from my view, from sitting in the stadium, I was shocked that he didn't come off at half time. For me, he just didn't offer anything at all.
But Nigel's right, though. If you actually got balls into the box, I mean, Harry Toffolo's got a good cross on him from the left. Serge Aurier is more of one who will go kind of down the outside and cut it back as opposed to actually put the cross in. But if you play to his strengths, Chris Wood can actually be very effective. But when you say, was I surprised that he was on for so long, the only out-and-out striker on the bench there is Origi. And if you're saying that he's not fit, and also he had to come on for Toffolo to make it an extra, to get it more attacking late on, to try to get the equaliser, actually I can understand why he stayed on. And if you are going to go route one in the last 10 minutes to get the equaliser, he would have got criticised for taking Wood off, because Wood would be the right striker to have on if they were the tactics that you resorted to.
With Everton, you've got two centre-halves there with Braithwaite and Tarkowski. That it's food and drink. You putting balls in the box and lumping balls in the box. That's what they want. They won a lot of area battles against us on Saturday. If Origi's not fit, why is he not fit? Is that fit as in he's got some muscle injuries or something like that, or is he not fit because he's not got match game fit? Because if you're a player and you don't feel fit enough, you do extra. You get yourself fit. So I don't know where he is. If he's fit to play 20 minutes, or is he fit to play 45 minutes, or is he fit to play a game? I don't know. I don't see day-to-day training at the football club. But if you're saying, Max, that Wood should come off at half time, and the sports scientists are saying that Origi can only last 20 minutes, what do you do? You know, there's a lot of pressure, I feel, on the back of Morgan Gibbs-White, because he's the one person really that can unlock defences. He's our most creative player we've got. Now you look at Sangara, Mangala and Yatesy, they're three great players and they've all got strengths, but creativity probably not what they're most used for. You know, so the work rate and the endeavour and the tenacity and all that lot, yes, 100%. But, you know, I think everyone's looking for Morgan Gibbs-White, and I think sometimes that he feels the pressure.
Do you think Morgan Gibbs-White should be played in the middle, Gemmo, instead of on the wide? That's a topic that's discussed amongst Forest fans, it seems like, every week, every second. I mean, for me, I think Morgan Gibbs-White is a midfielder and shouldn't be played kind of on the wide.
But again, it's all about what formation you play, isn't it? If you play a 4-3-3, you know, it's very difficult then, isn't it? You know, you lose something, but you gain something. And I just think that could we play a more, you know, 4-2-3-1 or something like that, which I think we tried to, at some point of the game, and give them that freedom to get on the ball and try and create things. But we need more from, you know, the wingers need to put more in there, you know. Anthony Langer's obviously been at Manchester United. He knows what's asked of him when you play for a massive club like that. And, you know, I think sometimes confidence plays a big part in it. And you could tell that maybe lacking a little bit of confidence against Everton. And then obviously what happens then is that the crowd get frustrated and you can hear, you know, a few voices around the ground. You know, and some people find it very difficult to, you know, produce the goods when, you know, the fans seem very unsettled.
Do you think that the tactics that Forest are playing and that Cooper's setting is up, and Gemmo mentions there, it is very different for us kind of sat watching it on the side. There's a lot of criticism towards Cooper with the way he's playing football at the moment.
I can understand the frustration for sure, because it wasn't pretty to watch at all on Saturday. It was, Forest never really got going. They didn't manage to stamp their influence on the game, and that's what fans want to see. Forest have shown that in spells.
The reason we couldn't get going is I think you've got to give Everton the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
You know, their work rate, and I sat there and I thought, wow, they can't continue this work rate for 90 minutes. The way they close us down, Sean Dyche and Ian Woan,
they've done the homework.
Before they got the Everton job, we're at the City Ground week in, week out, and they know exactly how we play in us. And the work rate was phenomenal.
Yeah, you could tell that they'd watched Forest a lot and they'd done the homework. They were well drilled, Everton, I thought. You're right, they did a really good job. I still think Forest should have done more. I still wanted them to do more.
Yeah,
it was an off day for a lot of players. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is better essentially, but Steve Cooper's hands were tied a little bit because Callum Hudson-Odoi had only just come back from injury. I don't think he was perhaps quite ready to start. Ideally, you'd have him on one side, Alanga on the other, Gibbs-White through the middle. I think that would be a really attacking lineup and a good way of offering more threat going forward. But he wasn't really able to do that on Saturday. Gibbs-White does need to score more goals. I think that's one area of his game that you really want him to improve on. I know it's something that Forest are working on him with. But he even when he's having a quiet game, he is capable of providing a moment of magic and stepping up with some really brilliant ball or a piece of brilliance.
Just out of interest, how many games has Morgan Gibbs-White played down the middle?
Do you know what, Gemmo? That is a stat.
That's a good question.
It's a
really
very
good question.
It's not a lot.
No.
So why now suddenly everyone's saying he's got to play down the middle?
I think perhaps the call from a lot of Forest fans, Gemma, would be to see more creativity in the middle, because when you watch the Everton game, did you think that having Yates there and having Mangala, all right, Mangala, he's probably a lot more creative than Yates, who's normally a defensive midfielder. But I think the biggest talking point amongst Forest fans, certainly the ones I spoke to after the game, was saying, look, there was no transition between that midfield and to Chris Wood, and maybe putting Gibbs-White in the middle would allow more creativity and more balls through to Chris Wood, which would then make his job a lot more easier.
I've just said before, Morgan Gibbs-White is our most creative player, and anyone to unlock the defences, it'd be him. You know, but he can't do everything. You know, and this moment in time, it seems like everyone's asking Morgan White to score more goals, be more creative, do this, do that. I think it's a bit unfair, personally. The poor lad's trying. He's a young lad. He's got immense talent. As a whole team, we've got to be more creative, you know. And I think we're reading too much into this. Obviously, you know, the two games that stick out now, obviously, are Luton and Everton, because they're both disappointing results against teams that obviously are below us. And this is the thing, isn't it? It's people always view things when we play teams below us, you know, and we seem to get away with it when we play teams above us, you know. And it's as if, like, how many times do you come to a game now? You know, how many games have we played? 14, do we say? How many games have we played? And before the game starts, it's a must-win game. We've got to win this game. There's another 20-odd games to go. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of panicking, and I'd like to see a bit more calmer. You know, back the manager. We'd like things to be better. No one knows that more than Steve Cooper. If come January things are looking a bit more bleaker, then that's down to the owner, who puts a tremendous amount of money into this football club. He's got a decision to make. But come on, we're better than what we were last season. We've got a better squad. We've had a few bad results. Let's get behind the team. Let's get behind the lads. Get behind the manager, and live it a good push for the next 5, 6, 7 games and see what happens from there.
Tom, against Fulham Wednesday night, big game. Gemmo might disagree, but surely that's. But surely, Gemmo, it's a game that Forest should be winning. Otherwise, it's 1 win in 11.
What divine right have we got to win at Fulham? Every game, you know, you go to Luton away. Do we have to win that? Do we have to win that? No, it's rubbish. But at the moment, everything's a must-win game. Why?
Because perhaps with this rot we're in, trying to almost get out of this rot. Do you not think?
We were in rots last year, weren't we?
It's not must-win because you are 6 points clear of relegation. So it's not must-win. There may come a time later in the season where there is a genuine must-win. At this stage, although, I mean, Nigel's right. If you give yourself 3 more points, and as things stand, you'd actually be 12th, and that is the kind of safety that I was talking about earlier. But you are. I know Everton had the points deduction. They're only on 7 points. You're 6 points above them. Burnley have only got 7. Sheffield United have only got 5. So it might actually be a season where Nottingham Forest don't get the 38 points that I've been talking about to be comfortably staying up, but you might end up staying up because of the rest of the league and Everton's points deduction. You might actually not need that many, which is why you might actually go through the whole season now, you know, without any must-win games at all. But I do think away at Fulham, I do think you've got a real chance. And although it's not must-win, I would imagine that Steve Cooper is certainly targeting it.
Do you think Cooper will be feeling the pressure ahead of Wednesday night, Sarah?
I think he's always feeling the pressure. I think there's always pressure on him. He'll be hurting after Saturday, hurting after the recent run of results. Don't think it is a must-win game, but I think Forest really need to turn around the form. 3 defeats on the spin is not great. You need to stop that. And it's having something to improve the mood, I think, and to give them, to have something to build on. A good result, a good performance at Fulham could really do that. It's a tricky place to go. But like I said before, I think it has the air of that Southampton game last season where it can be a big result on the road. There have been some really good performances away from home already this season, just without always getting the right results. Small margins. Performance wasn't great on Saturday. I don't think you can get away from that. But that hasn't always been the case. We've seen some really good glimpses of Forest this season, what they're capable of, what the players individually are capable of. It's getting them to gel as a team. That is going to take time. You want games quickly when you've lost. You want something to be able to put Saturday behind you and forget about it. And Wednesday night's a chance to do that. Surely
the travelling Forest fans will be really hoping, because I've noticed being in the away atmosphere and the home atmosphere, it just seems like things are a little bit different this season, and it seems like the expectations are higher for whatever reason. But it just seems to be a little bit more. Forest fans are going away from home now, and they're almost expecting those wins, and they're not taking those. We've seen last season Forest had 1 win away from home. I mean, that was really poor. This season it's been better, but it's still not great. So surely the fans travelling on Wednesday night, Gemmo, they must be expecting a win.
Listen, we all know the away form last year wasn't good, and that's one of the things I would have thought Steve Cooper would have wanted to put right this year. Our performances show that there is improvement away from home this year. But I've been to a few away games as well, Max. I went to Liverpool, and some of the fans there expect us to turn over Liverpool Anfield.
Yeah.
They're just being unrealistic. We can do it. Like I said before, anyone can beat anyone on the day. No one gave us a chance at Chelsea, and we're going to turn them over. I'll be there at Fulham, at Wolves on Saturday. They're winnable games, but it's not a must-win game. That's what I'm trying to put across. I said to the last 5 games, like I say, we've got Fulham, Wolves, Tottenham. Tottenham at home. Is it a must-win game? No. Is it a winnable game? Yes, because the way they play. For me, the squad is capable, but individual errors that have cost us at times. Steve Cooper can't do anything about individual errors once they cross that pitch. All he can do is prepare them for what he thinks is the best way. Fulham is a game where, yes, the supporters will be hoping that we get 3 points, and we all do. We all want us to win. We all want us to put a smile on the face, and winning breeds confidence, and the atmosphere around the place changes.
Tom, do you think Forest can turn this poor run of games round?
Definitely. I don't think you can. I think you will turn the poor run of form around. And when Nigel says you think you can get, he thinks she can get 9 points from the next 4 games, I actually think it's quite realistic. If you end up with 7 from the 4 games, it's still very, very good. And when you've had you're right that defeat on Saturday is knocked the stuffing out of you a bit. But it was only Saturday. You've got a game on Wednesday. It's not like you've got an international break or an FA Cup weekend. You've got the game coming up straight away, which is a good thing. And I think you've got a real chance against Fulham. I think you've got a real chance against Wolves. Tottenham, you're at home. Okay, you proved last season how you can beat the big clubs at home. And then Bournemouth at home is certainly one that'll be targeting. You're not going to get anything away at Newcastle, as much as it pains me to say it. And then it's Manchester United at home, who are very, very inconsistent. So the 6 games that you've got left this month, they're not as daunting as they could be. And like I say, it's not a can turn it around. You will turn it around.
The biggest kick in the teeth this season was Luton at home. We all know that. It's gone, and whether they'll learn to it. But if we could put on the performance next 4 or 5 games, like we did against Aston Villa, we won't be having this conversation.
I think that finishes us nicely. Well said, Gemmo. Tom, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Gemmo, thank you. Thanks for joining us from a very wet... Thanks very much for joining us from a wet golf club, you said, in Nottinghamshire?
Yeah, the Nottinghamshire.
Yes. Sarah, thanks for joining us. You're off to Cooper's press conference in a bit, aren't you? So fingers crossed he's positive and ready to go.
Send you my best.
Thank you. I will.
Right, thanks everyone for tuning in to this instalment of Garibaldi Red. We'll be back next week for another episode, although we might reflect on the Fulham game this week as well. Be sure to keep up to date with us on Twitter, Garibaldi Red _ and Nottinghamshire Live, and we will see you next time. Fingers crossed for a Forest win on Wednesday night. See you then.